She thought it was just a small act of kindness. But what happened next changed everything. It began on a morning that felt heavy even before the sun fully rose, the kind of morning where the air itself seemed tired. The city moved as it always did, loud and impatient, but inside her chest there was a quiet ache she had learned to live with. She had no idea that before the day ended, one simple decision would pull her out of the ordinary and push her into a chain of moments that would forever redefine who she was and what she believed about the power of kindness. What she thought would last only a few minutes would echo through months, through lives, and through her own wounded heart in ways she could never have imagined. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that often feels cold, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are silently waiting for a second chance. She was an ordinary woman by every visible measure, someone most people would pass without noticing. Her days were carefully divided between responsibilities, worries, and the quiet grief she carried after losing her mother the previous year. Since then, life had felt like a series of obligations performed on autopilot. She woke up early, worked long hours at a modest job, and returned to a small apartment that echoed with memories. Smiling had become a habit rather than a feeling, and kindness for her was one of the few things that still made her feel human. She believed in small good deeds not because she expected rewards, but because they reminded her that her heart was still alive. That morning, the rain had just stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective, like mirrors showing a tired version of the world. As she waited near a bus stop, she noticed an elderly man sitting on the cold bench, his coat too thin for the weather, his hands trembling slightly. People passed him without slowing down, eyes glued to phones or fixed on their own destinations. She felt that familiar tug in her chest, the quiet voice that said you can do something, even if it is small. She hesitated, not because she did not care, but because life had taught her how easily kindness could be ignored or misunderstood. Still, she reached into her bag and pulled out the extra sandwich she had packed but rarely ate. The act itself took less than a minute. She offered the food, gave a gentle smile, and moved on without waiting for thanks. She did not ask his name or his story. She did not imagine that this brief interaction would matter beyond that moment. In her mind, it was simply one human being helping another, a drop of warmth in a cold morning. As she walked away, she felt lighter, unaware that behind her, the man watched her with eyes full of something deeper than gratitude. The day unfolded as usual, filled with routine tasks and passing thoughts. Yet an unusual restlessness followed her, as if the world had shifted slightly off balance. That evening, as she returned home, she noticed a small envelope slipped under her door. There was no name on it, only a simple note written in shaky handwriting, thanking her for seeing someone who felt invisible. Inside was no money, no gift, just a few words that spoke of loneliness, of feeling forgotten, and of how that small kindness had brought back a sense of dignity. She sat on the floor reading it again and again, tears quietly soaking the paper. She told herself it was coincidence, that the universe sometimes liked to play emotional tricks, but deep down she felt something stir. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. A coworker she barely knew offered unexpected support when she struggled with a deadline. A neighbor she had never spoken to before helped carry her groceries without being asked. Even the city itself seemed softer, as if kindness had a way of returning in different forms. But the most powerful moment came a week later, when she received a call that would shake her to her core. She was told that the elderly man she had helped had collapsed shortly after, and that her small act had been one of the last moments of dignity and care he experienced. More than that, she learned he had no family nearby, no one to claim his belongings, and that her name had been found written on a scrap of paper among his things. Guilt and sorrow crashed over her like a wave. She questioned everything, wondering if she should have done more, stayed longer, asked questions. The familiar weight of loss returned, heavier than before, mixing her mother's memory with this new grief. For days she barely slept, replaying that morning over and over in her mind. Yet amid the pain, there was also a quiet realization forming. That man had not needed her to save him. He had needed to be seen, and she had done that. As she processed this, another unexpected door opened. A local community center reached out, explaining that the man had been a retired teacher who once devoted his life to helping others. They invited her to attend a small remembrance gathering. She almost refused, afraid of reopening wounds, but something told her this was part of a journey she could not ignore. When she arrived, she found a room filled with people whose lives had been touched by him decades earlier. Stories of encouragement, patience, and silent sacrifices filled the air. And in each story, there was a reflection of the same kindness she herself had shown without thinking. Standing there, she felt something shift permanently. Her pain did not disappear, but it transformed. It became fuel instead of weight. She realized that kindness was not just a momentary action, but a ripple that moved through time, connecting strangers in ways no one could predict. The man's life, once reduced in her mind to a brief encounter, expanded into something vast and meaningful. And her own life, which had felt small and stuck, suddenly felt connected to something larger. Inspired and terrified, she began volunteering at the community center. At first, she told herself it was temporary, just a way to honor the man's memory. But weeks turned into months, and slowly the walls around her heart began to crack. She met people carrying invisible burdens, people who needed not solutions but presence. Every smile, every shared moment, reminded her of her mother's gentle lessons about compassion. In giving to others, she found herself healing. Challenges did not disappear. There were days when exhaustion returned, when old grief resurfaced, when the world still felt unfair and harsh. But now she had a purpose that anchored her. She learned that kindness did not guarantee happy endings, but it guaranteed meaning. And meaning, she discovered, was sometimes enough to keep going. As time passed, her story quietly spread. Not as a viral sensation, not as a headline, but as whispers of inspiration among those who needed it most. People began to see her not as someone extraordinary, but as proof that ordinary people could create extraordinary change through small choices. She never called herself a hero. She still believed she had only done what felt right in that moment. But she could no longer deny the truth that one small act had redirected the course of her life. Now, as she walked through the same streets, she no longer felt invisible or disconnected. Every face held a possibility, every moment an opportunity. She understood that kindness was not about fixing the world, but about refusing to let the world harden her heart. And in that refusal, she had found herself again. If this story is touching something inside you right now, if it reminds you of moments you almost ignored or kindness you almost offered, please take a second to like this video and share it. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive for others who need hope. Before this story ends, we have a special request for you. Please comment below with one small act of kindness you believe can change someone's day. Your words might inspire someone more than you realize. In the end, she understood something simple yet profound. She had thought it was just a small act of kindness, something that would fade into the noise of everyday life. But what happened next taught her that no act of kindness is ever small. It carries weight, it carries memory, and sometimes it carries the power to change everything.